quarterfinals are set. I mean, well, is it just me, or did this week's matches go exactly as expected when you add in the context of the first leg? Well, the Porto and Inter match, that was the one that I saw as a potential comeback situation, but it was more like a sleepy nap time situation. Anyways, guys, getting ahead of ourselves here. The draw for the quarterfinals is tomorrow, and I'm happy to announce that I will be hosting a quarterfinals draw reaction stream live at 7 a.m. as it happens for BR Football. To watch, you just have to download the Bleacher Report app, and then tomorrow at 7 a.m. press on the lightning bolt icon at the bottom of the app, and the stream will be there for you to join. Come and say hello. It would be great to see some familiar faces or names in the chat. This was the case of the referee destroying a match, really. Were Leipzig dominating City? No, City were controlling the game, but the two things can be true at the same time. Leipzig were essentially playing uphill with this officiating, while City were building their attack well. The handball, the red that Ederson should have got, and then the De Bruyne stomp that wasn't even called as a foul. That was in the first half alone, man. The handball from Heinrichs, let's look at that first. As he is jumping, the ball is behind him and is headed downward, where it grazed against a few of his arm hairs, I believe. I mean, I'm joking. There was some contact, but you needed to play the video in ultra slow-mo and from a certain angle in order to see the contact. The view from behind the goal doesn't even look like a handball, but there was contact. What's frustrating with this one, and is the reason why people like Fabregas commented that if this is a handball, then we've lost the plot. The frustrating thing is that Heinrich's handball was completely inconsequential. It had zero effect on the play. Whether his hand was there or not, the path of the ball would have been the same. That's how slight the touch is. But while the referee is culpable for killing this game in some respects, RB Leipzig collapsed in an inexcusable fashion, and that's where they can blame themselves. Haaland scoring 5 goals against you, waving to the crowd, that's more than he has scored in the last 9 matches combined. And so when you combine these poor instances of officiating coupled with the fact that City were ruthless in this one, or namely Haaland, I mean, there was only going to be one outcome: massacre. Not a lot to analyze, really, as City continued to burn RB Leipzig from set pieces while Erling Haaland joined Lionel Messi as the only other player to score 5 goals in a single Champions League knockout match. That's crazy. 5 goals in 57 minutes, the fastest to ever reach 30 goals in the Champions League. He's at 33 now. That's 5 hat-tricks this season, 39 goals total this season, which is a new Man City record. I mean, wow. Ultimately, a big disappointment from RB Leipzig, as no, they were not in control before the strange call started rolling in, as we said, but who knows how they could have grown into this game. They were deflated after the penalty, which is understandable, but you can't just drop the game like that. Absolute stinker from the referee to start and Leipzig to finish it. But take nothing from Haaland, who was ruthless out there. 8-1 on aggregate for City. Porto and Inter, not exactly a spectacular match to take in, as you had Inter sitting very, very deep and not really providing much at all going forward. In fact, to give you an idea of what it was like for Inter, from their 4 shots on target in the first half, they accumulated an expected goals total of 0.16. That's an average of 0.04 per strike. They were not doing much at all, really, even if they looked like they could be dangerous on the counter in that first half. I mean, that danger subsided a little bit. Porto, by their standards, didn't do a lot in the first half either, as it took them a long time to wake up and take the game to this Inter side. I mean, they were playing at home, man. It should have been better. Or at least they began to finally find a way past Acerbi. Acerbi was the man of the match for sure, as he was fantastic for the visiting side. However, as the second half rolled on, Onana also emerged as the man of the match candidate, as Porto finally unlocked that Inter back line. Towards the end of the match, it was a constant storm of Porto attacks, and they were incredibly unlucky at the end of it, weren't they? Porto hit the woodwork twice in a matter of seconds, which came shortly after Denzel Dumfries cleared a strike that had finally beaten Onana off of the line. They were inches away from forcing extra time on 3 different occasions within a matter of seconds. In the end, however, Porto ended up going out with an aggregate of 1-0 to Inter, and Conceição was pissed after the match. He was giving everyone smoke, refused to shake Inzaghi's hand. He was speaking about how the ball boys had to be faster in a situation like that, how he hasn't been backed in ages at the club and people just focus on his public tirades instead of his achievements. That's funny because he was having a public tirade. Look, I agree with him to a certain extent, but he's his own worst enemy in this case. If you didn't explode with rage all the time, then have your players do the same on the pitch, I mean, Porto are one of the leaders when it comes to red cards in this competition, then people would simply focus on your achievements instead of how things devolve and how your team conducts itself on the pitch. Conceição really is a talented manager who deserves credit for what he has achieved with Porto, how he has at times overachieved, given the players he has at his disposal. But he shifts the focus onto his ridiculous antics all the time with these tirades and how he tries to control the narrative of everyone against Porto instead of just admitting he got something wrong or his team was shit. It's a very political approach and it gets tiring, and unfortunately it overshadows his achievements, which deserve to be spoken about. And that is Adrian turning off his Benfica brain and leaving his impartial brain on. So, Inter make it through by the skin of their teeth with a 1-0 aggregate scoreline, and for the first time in 17 years, both Milan clubs are in the quarters. Well, this was a mess before the match even started. You may have heard about how Napoli didn't allow traveling supporters into the stadium, how they wanted to ban the German supporters from traveling to Napoli for fear of what could happen in the city. And that ultimately became a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense. No side is completely innocent. The Napoli supporters played a role in stoking tensions as well by attacking the bus, etc. Not cool. But as for the actual day of the match and all of the destruction in Napoli, it's a bit difficult to follow the thread of who started it and who did what, but it's easy to see who finished it at least. The Frankfurt supporters going on an absolute tirade. I won't comment too much on this, as at the time of recording, there is still a lot of figuring out to do, but the main point stands. No business owner should have to put up with this. These absolute idiots that start burning police cars, smashing shop windows, stealing chairs and throwing them everywhere, leaving garbage everywhere, clashing with cops, throwing fireworks at them. It's embarrassing. And it's completely unfair for those business owners to have to shoulder that. Hopefully they will be compensated somehow, but I mean, would I be surprised if they weren't? No. Anyway, as for the match, Napoli eased to a victory, which came as no surprise. Both of the matches on Wednesday were pretty much foregone conclusions, in my opinion, as the teams with comfortable leads were playing the second leg at home. And when you add to the fact that Frankfurt were without a suspended Kolo Muani, it would have taken a Herculean effort for them to best Napoli and overturn that 2-goal deficit from the first leg. Napoli, as mentioned, kind of coasted through this, not getting off to a hot start, but just methodically picking apart Eintracht Frankfurt until the goal in the first half stoppage time. A nice ball down the right from Lobotka to Politano, and Osimhen leapt high to meet the ball and headed in. Great looping header, game over essentially. Frankfurt had 2 attempts in that first half, neither on target. When I said game over, I meant just for Frankfurt, as Napoli continued playing in the second half, and while Frankfurt showed more signs of life in the second half, it was Napoli who continued with the goals. Osimhen getting on the end of a beautifully worked attack down that right side once again, and then Zielinski converting a penalty to make it 3-0 on the night. 5-0 on aggregate, and for the first time in their history, Napoli have made it to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Crazy, eh? That surprised me a bit to hear that stat from the commentator. I'd forgotten they'd never made it this far before. This match, as mentioned, was also a foregone conclusion. Yes, Liverpool have had big comebacks before in the past, like they did against Barcelona, for example, but that was a very, very different Liverpool team that was in good form and went on to win the competition. And they were playing at home at Anfield in that second leg. In this case, a Liverpool that is completely out of sorts and losing to relegation fodder this weekend, going away to the Santiago Bernabeu, where they would have to turn around a 3-goal deficit against the defending champions, who also seem to beat Liverpool for fun. I mean, remember, you have to go back to 2009 for the last time Liverpool beat Real Madrid. This is what, 8 matches running now that they failed to beat them? Well guys, spoiler alert here, but Real Madrid came out on the other side as the team that will be advancing, and they also won on the night. The match actually started with a decent opportunity for Darwin Núñez, only for Real Madrid to respond immediately. And as they settled into this match, those familiar deficiencies in Liverpool's right side of defense and in the attack started to crop up again. Alexander-Arnold was struggling defensively, but could do a job going forward for the most part. He wasn't at his sparkling best even going forward, that's for sure. And I think at this point, Liverpool should just sign a right back, a decent right back, and play Alexander-Arnold as a Mezzala in the midfield or something. I've said it before and I'll say it again, man. Get that boy in the midfield. Anyway, Courtois did have to make a few saves in this one. It wasn't just a walk in the park for Real Madrid, but considering this was a Champions League knockout match, the quality from Liverpool was not where it needed to be. They look like a team that just can't wait for the season to be over so they can get a fresh start. You know, it looks like they aren't even having fun anymore. How could they be, right? For Real's part, they scored a well-worked goal that was almost a well-worked close call as Vinicius slipped while finishing, but was able to square to Benzema while he was seated on the Bernabeu grass. He did it from his ass. Benzema with the finish, and he hobbled away during the celebration before getting subbed off. That man needs to be protected because he's very fragile. Real nearly had a penalty, but the referee went to review it at the monitor and stuck with his original call. He didn't give it. I like that, as we've basically been conditioned into believing that if a referee reviews something, he'll reverse his call. The handball by Tsimikas was unfortunate as it deflected off of his body first. I mean, the handball rule gets more daily updates than a Windows computer, but there used to be, and I guess still is, a rule that if the ball takes a deflection off of your own body part before hitting your hand, then it is not a handball. But anyway, again, it would have been a meaningless penalty and wouldn't have changed anything as far as the outcome of this tie. Real Madrid win 1-0 on the night and 6-2 on aggregate. 6-2 BU. Therefore, Napoli, Real Madrid, Inter, and Man City join Benfica, AC Milan, Bayern Munich, and Chelsea in the quarterfinals draw. Now remember, for this one, it's an open draw. There are no restrictions as far as teams from the same country or from the same original group. Anyone can be drawn against anyone at this point. And again, you can watch it with me live in the Bleacher Report app tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Join me. So that's it, guys. I will also have Roots of the Rivalry out for you tomorrow, so I hope to see you there, or in the live stream, or both if you really like me, or hate yourself. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.